My golden sister dated my ex to humiliate me. I broke them up and left them with nothing. My name is Jennifer. I'm 25 years old. I have an older sister, Sarah. She's 27. And let's be honest, she's always been the golden girl. Not because she has a heart of gold or some glowing personality, but because of her golden hair and the fact that she's always been Mom's favorite. Picture this: Sarah, with her perfectly styled sunset-colored curls and those light eyes that somehow manage to sparkle in every picture she takes. She's the kind of person who can make even the worst lighting work in her favor. And then there's me. Just ordinary. No golden shine, no picture-perfect moments, just me. That's how it was growing up. Endless comparisons from Mom where I was always the one who didn't quite measure up. Not that I was jealous, but it's hard not to feel irritated when you're constantly reminded that you're not as amazing or charming as your older sister. But of course, Sarah didn't stop at being the family favorite. No, that wouldn't have been dramatic enough. The grand finale of our lifelong competition came when she decided to start dating my ex-boyfriend. Yeah, that Tom. The first guy I truly loved. The one I thought I had a real future with. When I found out, I genuinely thought she couldn't sink lower. But there she was, dating him as if it was the most normal thing in the world. It all started with a casual message from a friend on social media. "Hey, did you see Sarah and Tom's photos? They look adorable together." My heart sank. I stared at the message, feeling like the air had been knocked out of me. What do you mean, adorable? How could they look adorable when that's my ex she's posing with? Shock doesn't even begin to cover it. It was like my world had been flipped upside down. But in the midst of that disbelief, something snapped. If this was how she wanted to play it, fine. I wasn't about to keep being the good sister who silently suffers while my life gets torn apart. If Sarah was determined to star in a reality show called Jennifer's Life, one defeat after another, then I was going to be the producer, director, and lead actress. No more playing by the rules. From that moment on, I knew. I was done with being second best. If she wanted a war, she was going to get one. I tried to stay calm. Really, I did. But imagine this. My golden sister Sarah, parading my past feelings like they were some kind of trophy, all accompanied by those perfect Instagram snapshots. Candlelit dinners at a fancy 5-star restaurant? Naturally, they'd have the best table. Romantic walks in the park, bathed in soft twilight, holding hands like they were some picture-perfect couple from a sappy movie? Oh, absolutely. And don't even get me started on the trips. Every time I opened my feed, there was a new album of them hiking some picturesque trail, posing in front of breathtaking waterfalls, or snuggled up against a backdrop of a blazing sunset, sharing a kiss as if the universe had planned it just for them. Every single perfect photo felt like a slap, and I could practically feel my blood pressure rise every time I scrolled past their latest escapade. I told myself to ignore it, pretend it didn't bother me. But when another amazing picture of them popped up, this time, Tom holding Sarah's hand in front of some vineyard, both of them looking so annoyingly happy, I snapped. I felt the rage simmering, then bubbling, then boiling over until I couldn't take it any longer. My heart pounded in my chest as I grabbed my phone, and before I could stop myself, I had already pressed call and was listening to the ringing on the other end. "Do you even realize what you're doing?" I hissed as soon as she picked up, my voice barely under control, my fingers gripping the phone so tightly I thought it might crack. For a second, there was only silence, and then I heard her voice. A voice that dripped with that artificial sweetness she always used when she wanted to play the innocent. "Oh, are you talking about Tommy?" she asked, as if she were genuinely confused, as if she had no idea why I'd be upset. Her tone was sickeningly gentle, like she was speaking to a child. I could almost see her shrugging, her perfect hair cascading over her shoulder as she played dumb for an imaginary audience. "But you broke up with him, Jen. Is it really my fault he came to me for comfort?" I was so furious I went numb. My face was burning, but I couldn't feel it anymore. This was it. This was the final straw. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she was reveling in it. Sarah had always been the star of her own show, and now she'd made Tom her latest accessory. Her indifference, her smugness. It was like she had been waiting for this call, waiting for me to lose it. She was winning this twisted game of hers, and she knew it. "Got it, Sarah," I said, my voice like ice, trying to keep my composure even as I felt my anger turning into something cold and sharp. "Enjoy it while you can. You and Tom are going to regret crossing me." I hung up before she could say another word, my hand shaking as I set the phone down. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. No more nice sister. No more stepping aside while she danced all over my feelings. If she wanted a drama, I was going to give her one. Loud, messy, and impossible to ignore. It was time to stop playing the background role in my own story. She had no idea what was coming her way, but one thing was clear. The rules had changed, and I was just getting started. I started by deciding not to go in blindly, but to act smart. Sarah had played by her rules for too long. Now it was my turn. And as they say, if you know where to lay the trap, I knew Sarah, the queen of social media with each photo and story meticulously scripted. I intended to turn her show into a tragicomedy. First, I conducted a research mission on her profiles like a proper internet stalker. Yes, we've all done it. Don't pretend. A few hours of digging through her feed, and there it was, the key to her vulnerability. Sarah was bragging about an upcoming fashion event, organized to celebrate her new project. This could only mean one thing. She planned to shine in front of her friends and admirers. But what if that shine got a little dull? I reopened an old fake account I'd created back in college. Oh, the nostalgia, and started sending out false invites. False because I invited the last people Sarah would want to see. Among the invitees were her former friends with whom she had fallen out, a couple of disgruntled acquaintances, and of course people she couldn't stand but kept around for the sake of appearances. "Surprise, surprise," I whispered to myself, sending off the last invite, feeling a satisfying warmth of malice. I could almost see her perfect, carefully constructed image cracking like an old mirror. "So, Sarah, ready for the show?" All that was left was to wait and enjoy. The event went disastrously. For Sarah, at least. For me, it was a popcorn-worthy evening. She found herself in the middle of a true storm of rumors and gossip that I systematically fanned online, like a firefighter with a gasoline hose. Oh, you should have seen her face when the guests she hadn't expected began to arrive. Those looks filled with jealousy, hidden malice, and a desire to dig up dirt. Just as I had planned. Sarah tried to keep her composure, but her smile grew tighter with each passing minute. I watched as she started to panic when one of her friends loudly mentioned hearing about her dirty tricks from another friend. Yep, I was that other friend who had put the rumor into motion. She was starting to buckle under the weight of the accusations, and I could almost feel her confidence shattering like a cheap silk blouse on clearance. Her perfect image had failed, and I could practically see her reputation melting like a cheap plastic mask. This was only the beginning, of course. After the event, her panic hit a whole new level as it all began surfacing online. Ah, how quickly people love to air out dirty laundry. Just yesterday, they admired her flawless photos, and today, they were discussing her shady dealings. But, as they say, take out one link and the whole chain falls apart. Her relationship with Tom started to unravel quickly. I knew Tom was sensitive about his status, so I spread rumors that he was dating Sarah just for her money and fame. It worked like expensive perfume at a party. Everyone noticed instantly, and of course, Tom didn't remain unaffected. I did everything I could to make sure he stumbled upon the truth online. Oh, I knew his weaknesses like the back of my hand. Once he saw a few snarky comments, he couldn't stop. he'd keep reading, like staring at a car crash. My work was complete when he came across the comment, "What's it like being Sarah's boyfriend just for the perks?" I knew that would be enough to set off the chain of events, and the chain started collapsing. Tom grew more suspicious, and Sarah got more irritated with his endless questions about money and status. She couldn't laugh it off like she used to, and her attempts to calm him down looked like a pathetic imitation of calm. A crisis was brewing, and I knew that my little show was just getting started. Sarah clung to Tom with a death grip. She knew she was losing control of the situation, and, true to form, she decided to stage a public show for everyone to see. How to counter rumors and gossip? Of course, with social events and Instagram photo shoots. They started showing up at every trendy party in town. Movie premieres, boutique openings, fashion shows. Every time I checked social media, their perfect selfies were in my face. Tom looked like he'd been dragged to every single one of those parties. He couldn't hide his annoyance anymore, rolling his eyes every time Sarah showed him how to pose perfectly for the camera, and pursing his lips when her friends called them the perfect couple. I could tell he was reaching his limit. His whole body screamed, "This is not the woman I want to spend my life with." But Sarah kept up her circus act, ignoring the obvious signs of distress. Her smile grew wider, her outfits got flashier. It was like she was trying to plaster over the cracks in her relationship with a bright shade of lipstick and cheap compliments from friends. But I knew the end was near. All that was needed was one last push to make their house of cards collapse with a deafening crash. Then I found out they were planning a weekend getaway in some fancy cabin to strengthen their relationship and spend time away from it all. Oh, how sweet, I thought when I saw the announcement on her social media. If only they knew that I was planning to turn their romantic escape into a hellish comedy. I waited until they left, and then I got to work. I contacted Sarah's former friend, a girl she'd fallen out with years ago over jealousy, because Sarah had the style but not the smarts. The friend agreed to help instantly. She didn't care about Sarah, and my plans sounded like fun. We agreed she'd show up at the cabin by accident, like, "Oh, I was just passing by and thought I'd drop in." Ah, those good old coincidences. That was when I knew my stage was set. Sarah had no idea that her perfect love story was about to fall apart. She was confident she had everything under control. But as soon as she came face to face with the past, with that very friend they had fought over petty college rivalry, her fake little world would start crumbling like sand through her fingers. Well, the game was on. I tagged along on the getaway under the pretense of friendly support. I mean, I needed a break too, right? Sarah, of course, pretended to be sweet and cheerful. We are sisters, after all. But I could see how tense she got. Her perfect vacation under threat? Oh yes. And I knew the real fun was yet to come. Everything was prepared to the smallest detail. When Sarah's former friend Lindsay suddenly accidentally showed up at our cabin with a bottle of expensive wine, I was ready to witness the best show of the season. Lindsay just happened to recognize that Sarah was there and decided to drop by. Just like the good old days. Sarah instantly put on her fake smile, like it was another Instagram filter, but her eyes gleamed with rage. They started with forced compliments, and I knew that was the cue for the show to start. It didn't take even 10 minutes for the compliments to turn into cutting remarks. It was like someone had poured gasoline on the fire. They both ignited. Lindsay, of course, wasn't backing down, and immediately accused Sarah of ruining her career back in college. Classic envious revenge from the school days. Sarah tried to brush it off as usual, but her voice quivered. Tom stood off to the side, slowly sipping his whiskey, and I could see his irritation growing. He suddenly realized this wasn't just a random argument, but a full-on spectacle, the kind Sarah had been putting on her whole life. And that's when it all went completely off the rails. When Sarah, practically shouting, accused Lindsay of being jealous of her success, Tom had enough. He threw his glass of whiskey to the side. Honestly, it looked like a movie scene. And stood in front of Sarah. "Stop lying," he yelled. and I felt the air thicken with tension. "I'm sick of your hypocrisy, Sarah. You act all perfect, but it's all a big lie." Sarah froze as if she'd been hit with cold water. But Tom wasn't stopping. Fueled by alcohol and pent-up rage, he started spilling everything he'd been holding back. How he couldn't stand her fake personality anymore. How he could see she used people for status. At one point, he grabbed the gifts she'd given him, expensive watches, branded trinkets, and threw them into the campfire we'd lit in the backyard. I sat back, enjoying every second, as Sarah, standing by the fire, tearfully tried to get Tom to stop. But it was too late. He looked at her with disdain, as if she was an empty wrapper, and disappeared into the night without a backward glance. I watched as Sarah cried in front of the blazing fire, feeling a wave of triumph rising inside me. This was the moment I had orchestrated. The very moment when her perfect world crumbled, and I, finally, was on top of the game she had started. Sarah tried to save face, but it looked as ridiculous as trying to fix a shattered mirror with tape. Her spotless reputation shattered into pieces like a cracked mirror, and it was glorious. Her friends, or rather, the fans who pretended to be friends as long as it benefited them, began disappearing from her life one by one, like rats from a sinking ship. Oh yes, I saw it even on social media. Her account was empty, likes became rare, and supportive comments vanished, just like Tom. As for Tom, he left for good, without a chance of a dramatic comeback. A ghost that vanished into the night, never to look back. Sarah, of course, wasn't going to give up just like that, and tried to act like she was still in control. Her excuses and accusations towards me were about as convincing as a bad play in a small-town theater. "It's all because of Jennifer! She ruined my life!" she cried in her usual drama queen manner. And me? I just laughed. I laughed so hard I almost fell off my chair. Let's be honest. This girl always loved playing the victim. Well, I let her mourn her lost reputation, watching her pitiful attempts to regain her former shine. But the game didn't end there. No, now I held all the cards. I was the one steering her future, and every card I played was a perfect hit. One phone call. Just one tiny phone call to her office, and her career plans went up in smoke. It didn't take me long to find the right pressure point, since I knew all her weaknesses. Her whole shiny career was built on lies and appearances, and I knew that if I nudged that fragile foundation just a little, it would all come crashing down. I knew where to look. I knew who to call and what information to leak to make sure her new project would fail before she even got to the presentation stage. And voila, her perfect plan turned to ash faster than her expensive gifts in the bonfire. Yes, maybe it was cruel, but she was cruel to me once too, wasn't she? And as always, her boss, finding out about the mistakes in her project, quickly found a replacement. Oh, how she tried to regain her position, but every door slammed shut right in her face. I kept fueling the fire, using every misstep she made. I always considered her biggest flaw, her habit of trusting the wrong people, her greatest mistake. My golden sister was left completely isolated, like a queen without a kingdom. Her life, full of glitter and fake compliments, fell apart like a house of cards. Friends who once envied her perfection disappeared so quickly, it was as if they had never existed. Tom? Well, he ran away too, the moment he realized the perfect illusion no longer worked. His last social media post was from some warm resort on the other side of the world, and I knew that Sarah was truly alone now. No supportive likes, no comments, and definitely no Tom by her side. And you know what? I finally felt the weight that had been pressing on me since childhood lift, as if it had evaporated. All those small humiliations, constant comparisons, and endless attempts to make me feel unworthy. All gone. I realized that no one would ever again control my life and my emotions. I was no longer going to be the one pushed to the background. Now, this was my game, and I was playing to win. Yes, I was ruthless. Yes, I went for deception and used her weaknesses against her, but I believe it was justice. How many times had she betrayed me, humiliated me, and made me feel like I wasn't good enough? This was payback, and I was ready for the consequences. Maybe I was the villain in this story, but at least I was honest with myself. Now I had a chance to start a new life, a life without her toxic comments, without her condescending attitude, belittling me at every turn. I realized that true freedom isn't a perfect picture, isn't about the glitter in the eyes of those around you, but about knowing that you'll never again let anyone dictate your rules. The story might have ended, but I felt it was just the beginning. The first step to living for myself. The first step towards real happiness where there's no place for intrigues, deceit, and jealousy. I was no longer Sarah's little sister. I was Jennifer, the one who stood strong and won. And let me tell you, it felt damn good.